Yeah, in terms of price targets, I look at price targets for either medium or short-term moves. So I do look at that, but I don't look at price targets in terms of the price is going to get here and that's it. Like I've been following the chart up and I was looking for the 90,000 moves that we just got. And my next target's around 98 to 102. And then I'm looking towards around 122. So just take it piece by piece because at the end of the day, it's about making profits, not about predicting a price that may never happen.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show today. I'm super excited. I have one of my favorite YouTubers, Jason. How you doing, man?
Excellent. How you doing, mate?
It's fantastic to have you here. I had a pleasure meeting you in Singapore, watching Eric winning the fight. So super excited we are doing this together. But if you don't mind, can you give us an intro and tell us a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about me. I guess what the guys will probably want to know, like who I am, where you find me, that sort of stuff. I'm obviously on YouTube, but the way I like to introduce it on YouTube anyway is I've been trading and investing for over 18 years. I started with real estate, not obviously Bitcoin. That was when I was 20. So you can sort of figure out how old I am. Got into real estate and then wanted to keep doing more of that over the years. Got into trading, I think about 4 or 5 years later. And then 6, 7 years later, I got into Bitcoin and crypto trading. So that was through the 2017, 2016, 2017 cycle. So that's kind of like the elevator pitch that people ask or they want to know, like where have I come from and the years and what have you been doing and that sort of stuff.
Fantastic. I'm sure people will know you, but in the comments down below, of course, I will link your channel as always. I also like your brother, so I follow you guys aggressively on Twitter. So thank you so much for producing so much good content. And why Bitcoin? I mean, what drove you to it?
The simplicity of the transfers and the understanding of the decentralized nature of transferring currency online. It was sort of a period of my life where I was just getting really fed up with banks and so forth. And I think that's kind of exacerbated over the last several years. So there's a need for it. Whichever one works, who knows? Seems like Bitcoin's going to be the one for now. But, I'm a little bit more malleable when it comes to, whether I'm a maxi or not. For now, I think Bitcoin's the one. None of them have really shown to compete with Bitcoin for that specific use of, say, an online asset, or if you want to call it a currency.
I agree completely. I don't know if you are as much excited as I am, but I watch your video. You dive deep into TA and price predictions and analysis. I also like to zoom out a little bit and look into the macro and see ETF coming in. And now, of course, we have a Bitcoin president in the US. There is a chat on making Bitcoin as a currency reserve. So I think we're about to experience an incredible bull run. Are you also expecting a huge move coming in the next few months?
I think we've already seen a huge move, from 2022, 15,000, and now it's going to be any number by the time someone else is watching this. But right now it is the 21st of November. And when we got on the stream, it was 96 and now it's 97. Maybe we hit 100K while we're on the stream, who knows? But it's like, that's a pretty significant move already. But in terms of the excitement and the retail FOMO that people will experience, I think that's yet to come. So it depends on the definition, I guess. Is it a mania bull? I think that's to come. Have we seen explosive gains already? It's up to the viewer, but I think, what are we looking at? Is it 600 or 700%? We're somewhere around that. It's pretty significant. When you think about it being Bitcoin, you sort of expect those returns from altcoins, but it's a huge move already.
We've gone from 15K to, like you said, God knows when this is going to be published, it could be very much 100,000. But I think if history repeats, if you look into the data, we should have another few months at least. Like it should be 2025 when we maybe stall.
2025 I think is a good year for it. I don't know whether it's going to be the beginning or the end, or we have a very strong pullback in 2025 after a big move up, and then it goes quiet again, and then it starts to take off again the following maybe the following year or two. We'll wait and see. There's a bit to digest first. But the fifth, so this is some of the other stuff that I do when it comes to like a macro cycle where I look at real estate and the economy. So I don't just look at Bitcoin. I cover everything. When I say that, it's like the traditional markets, right? So you might have seen from my videos, the 5th year of the decade is usually one of the biggest years that you get in the stock markets. 2015, obviously not one, but that is related to another cycle, which, you know, we could talk about future things. But the fifth year, you got 2005 was up, 1995 was up, 1985, 1975, I believe, had a peak somewhere around there, 65, 55, 25, 45. Like it's a pretty important year. It's not a 100% guarantee, but the fifth year of the decade is, the probabilities are on our side. We can put it down to that.
Yeah, I like your view on the macro as well when it comes to not just Bitcoin specifically, because I also believe it's going to be impacted by the economy in general, right? It's not like an isolated asset into a bottle. You know, whatever happens to the economy is going to impact Bitcoin. Are you expecting the cycles to change now that we have the ETF, now that we have potentially
No,
countries like the US following into it?
no, cycles don't change. I've seen a lot of people try to talk about that, or, you know, they talk about it and they try to debate that cycles change. What happens within the cycle is different, but the cycles are the cycles. And I'm not referring to the halving cycle. It's just cycles in general remain cycles, and it's just a matter of whether they're strong or weak. So within that, call it a 4-year, are we going to see big gains in the first half of the cycle, or smaller gains in the first half, and which means we're not going to see much in the second half? Like, the cycle is a cycle, essentially. It's like summer through to I always get this wrong. So summer, autumn, winter, spring. They don't change. It's just a matter of the temperature. Putting climate change aside, any of that stuff, sometimes you get a warmer summer, sometimes you get a cooler summer. There's no difference.
I think you posted not long ago was it a chart made by a farmer who predicted those money cycle thing, which was like a wave? I think it was you posted it on
Oh
Twitter.
yeah, that maybe you can throw it up when you're editing the video. But yeah, I think that goes back into the 1800s, but it's a very similar cycle to what Gann did, Mr. Gann. So his name was William Dilbert Gann. If anyone's interested to look up Gann, absolute genius of the markets. That's the analysis that I use for like all of my trading and investing. And he also had a very similar view of cycles. And he put together something very similar to this chart that you're talking about. And yeah, I mean, he died in 1955. The charts he put together were in 1909 through to like the 1940s, and basically forecasted all the way through to now. Some of them were slightly off, as the have to recall why, but you can realign it pretty easily, you know, just to make it simple for anyone listening. Like, yeah, there's a few little nuances to it, but once you overlay the 18-year real estate cycle, it becomes a lot clearer.
What's your expectation in terms of market cap? Because now we are hovering about 1.8 trillion with Bitcoin. Gold is about 18 trillion. Are you expecting us to go kind of halfway, 9 trillion, 5 trillion? Do you have a kind of a range?
Not really. I know that's what people always want, and I guess over the last several cycles, you sort of hear it over and over again. It makes for a fantastic something like an opinion, you know, like a Michael Saylor or a Raoul Pal. I think he also has his price targets. You know, he's looking at ETH $20,000 last cycle. He got nowhere close. Maybe it doesn't even make it this cycle. You know, like, yeah. If we wanted something for a thumbnail, we could say anything. We could say 300K, right? Which wouldn't be a bad thing. But I think the people that follow me, at least what I've seen from the comments, they say that I keep it pretty real. So yeah, I don't look for anything ridiculous. I don't think Michael Saylor is going to be correct on any of these targets. Like, it hasn't happened before. Kathy Wood with her targets. I like Arthur Hayes, actually. I don't know if you've had him on his show. He was looking for $750,000 Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen this cycle. Like, there's a lot of extreme ends. One was that end, and then the other side is like the other guys. I mean, you can say their names if you want, but they were looking for $12,000 Bitcoin and all this sort of when it came to the bear market.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense. So yeah, in terms of price targets, I look at price targets for either medium or short-term moves. So I do look at that, but I don't look at price targets in terms of the price is going to get here and that's it. You know, like, I've been following the chart up and I was looking for the 90,000 moves that we just got, and my next target's around 98 to 102, and then I'm looking towards around 122. So just take it piece by piece, because at the end of the day, it's about making profits, not about predicting a price that may never happen.
Yeah, and that's what I like a lot about you. You keep it real, keep it simple, and you stay in the short time frame. Also, you trade, so that makes total sense. Like from my perspective, I'm more like an investor, so I don't touch trades. I mean, I like to draw lines every now and then, but not professionally speaking, just to give myself an indication of where we could go. But me, like you, that's why I've asked you about market cap instead of a price, because I don't think we're going to go near gold whatsoever on this cycle, because that would be incredibly bullish. So I think we might be getting into, I don't know, 2 or 3 trillions, maybe 2x from now. Maybe we'll get to, I don't know, 100 and something thousand. But I don't think about these either. I don't have a game in the short term. I buy as much as I can. I'm fully plugged into the Bitcoin standard. I actually live in the Bitcoin standard. So I just throw everything I have in there, not for a quick flip, but for a kind of live kind of investing savings. So I don't actually care if we go to 150 or 250 and we retrace to 100,000. I don't care, because I'm super zoom out in the cycle. But I know that there are people, they watch the show, they maybe are about to jump in and they are worried, they might buy in the top. So that's why I'm interested in having your perspective on the cycle. You said also something interesting. I also believe 2025 will be where we potentially chill out and maybe retrace a little bit down. Usually happens in October, February, or April. Those are the 3 bullish months. We started early, first time ever. We gone over the all-time high prior to the halving. So maybe this time, instead of finishing in October, we'll finish maybe in summer. I don't know if you agree, but it could be that we might finish a little bit shorter.
Provided there's more money coming into the system, like, in the US economy, and real estate prices continue to go up as they have done, as the data has shown. That's for the US primarily, and of course Australia as well. And I know you've seen it in Dubai, you see it in Bali. It's basically a lot of places that people want to go. People want to live at this stage. I think eventually that stuff comes full cycle, and comes down. And at which point, it doesn't matter how much people think this time is different. The narrative has changed for Bitcoin. There's no chance it can go down. I hear all of the excuses starting to begin now with the narratives of why Bitcoin can't go down, with the presidency and what else are they talking about? Bitcoin becoming a US reserve currency and all sort of stuff. No matter any of these narratives that come up, I think eventually it'll turn down at a point. So I think that was kind of along the lines of what you were saying when it came to the cycle itself, when things are, they'll come up and then eventually they'll come down. That's basically the game, and that's the way it's always been throughout history. That's something you can guarantee.
What's your strategy? Are you going to hold?
I hold a vast majority, just hold Bitcoin. ETH was a bad decision this cycle so far. Maybe that turns out to be a little better. Fortunately, mine is mostly Bitcoin. And then I learned from my first cycle through 2017 was don't hold altcoins through a bear market. So in 2021, I sold out of everything in, I think it was roughly December, January. Just when I saw my signals that the market was turning, I got rid of those. The lesson I learned from that is still don't hold ETH and Bitcoin through a downturn. This cycle, it's majority of it's gone. I'd say all of the ETH will be gone, and then I'll also dump a lot of Bitcoin, but I'll be buying real estate, even though I think real estate will also have a correction. You're essentially getting something physical for selling off something non-physical. I know a lot of people have a different view of that, and they have this Michael Saylor opinion that you have to be in the Bitcoin space forever and ever. There's only so many made and all this sort of stuff, but it doesn't do anything. It's gold, sure, but you can also sell gold to make profit and then go and buy some land that you can live in and get a rental return from. So then you can go and use that to buy more Bitcoin later.
It's a strategy, right? I think you get to a point in your portfolio where you want to manage it according to how much it grown, right? So the interesting part is, probably like you, we focus a lot on Bitcoin. I mean, you also look into real estate and other parts, but for me, most of my day and most of my life is dedicated to Bitcoin. And of course, I do gamble a little bit on the Altcoin casino, but it's a really small amount.
Sure, yeah. A lot of gains to be had there, but you can definitely use a smaller amount of the portfolio. It just depends on what size your portfolio is. So, and then what the goals are at the end of that. Yeah, it's all relative to the individual, which is, a tough question to answer when you don't know the individual.
Is there something you would do specifically? Let's say you would would enter now into the market, like what would be your play now? Would you go into Bitcoin heavily? Would you play with altcoins? What would be your strategy?
So again, it's another difficult question to answer because you just don't know what experience does that person have. Am I coming at it with my experience of 14 years trading and 18 years in the markets, like learning from the beginning to read people's emotions and the market sentiment and the charts? Or am I coming at it from a perspective of someone who's entirely new and just heard about it? If I just heard about it, well, then who am I as well? Got to add that in. What's your risk parameters? You never know until you try. So maybe you do want to be degenerate and you throw it into Bitcoin and then into other altcoins and meme coins and all this stuff, and you realize it's just not the game for you, or you realize it's the game for you. So yeah, and it's a tough question because there's no one answer for that one person, which I'm sure you're aware of. And as you can see from a lot of people who've been doing it for 1, 2, 3 cycles, you realize the majority of them start to swing further away from the altcoins and just take it easy in Bitcoin. Because yeah, like we've seen, Bitcoin's gone from 15K to nearly 100K. If you got the patience, you'll be all right. But the majority of people get in like now, 2 years after the bull market started. If you hit 2 years earlier, it's a different story.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic answer, and sorry to put you on the spot. I just wanted to pick your brain here because also it depends, like you said, there are so many variables: how much money you have, how long is your time frame, do you have money you can afford to lose, do you have a family, are you single, are you in your 20s, in your 50s? There is so many options. It's interesting to pick your brain here because some of my audience every time comments on my videos saying, well, Bitcoin is not enough for us to make money. It depends about your time frame, right? I think if you have, and I know I agree with you, most people don't have patience. They just most likely buy the top and sell the bottom because that's how retail operates, right? That's how I got in, at least. I've got in at the top because I FOMO into it. And then I did not sell the bottom, but I was really close. Obviously, I did not spend as much time in researching and studying Bitcoin, but I was like, okay, maybe I made a mistake. I'm not going to sell now because it doesn't make sense, but meme coins have been stealing the show lately. So if you are someone who wants to go in and read the headlines on the news, this guy bought $400 is now a multimillionaire. I don't know if you agree with me, but this is not the rule. This is the exception. Most people are going to lose money, I think, on meme unless they have a proper plan. I don't know if you agree with me here, but it's really dangerous territory.
The data shows the majority of people lose a majority of their money. So you could throw any statistic at it. 90% of people lose 100% of their money over 3 months. That's something that I read on the eToro website. I think they show that maybe it was like 76 to 80% of people lose 100% within the 3 months. But nonetheless, it's a ridiculous figure. 4 out of 5 people are just going to end up at zero. But I don't see a problem with stuffing around on meme coins, especially when the same sort of people, maybe, I don't know if it's you watching out there, but say here in Australia, I'm sure it's different in Dubai. Actually, I think it's illegal in Dubai, but here you can sports bet. There's a lot of sports betting. Is that illegal? Is it legal in Dubai?
No, you can't bet. You can't gamble. No.
In Australia, it's a very popular pastime to bet on sports, to bet on horses, to bet on whatever. So if they're throwing $50, $100 at that stuff, I would say if you're that degenerate, play memes, because at least you've got the opportunity to possibly make way bigger percentages. And provided you are watching it a lot, you potentially have the opportunity to at least make something from this stage. Maybe in 6 months it's going to be a different story, but from this stage you potentially have I think there's a better chance of making money on that than doing something like sports betting, sports gambling, essentially, that I know a lot of Aussies love to do. I think it's popular in Asia, maybe even the US as well, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, there's better things to put your money with.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I lived most of my life in the UK, and even in London, it's super easy. You can go to the casino, you can gamble on anything, even on rugby, on sports, on horses. If I look into the numbers, into the stats, I think if you go on Dex Screener and you randomly buy meme coins, you'll probably lose all the money. But if you do a little bit of research, we've seen Pepe, Dog Whip Hat, even Doge, which is like an old school, those are easy those are easy choices, I think. And you can be a degenerate, like you said, instead of going out and betting on random things. If you do a little bit of research, maybe you can make some bucks in there. And when they double, you can sell them.
The whole thing just comes down to time, how much people are willing to put in. So I don't know your audience or anyone that's watching. I don't know how much they're willing to invest in terms of their time. and what they're like when it actually comes to putting their money on the line, because that's another story. And then people get very jealous and they get FOMO. That they'll go, oh, Doge's already up 400% from whatever it was, 8 cents to 40 cents. Maybe it's 35 now, I don't know. But they'll go, oh, it's already done. But if you learn to read a chart, you're like, well, it's actually showing some strength, and provided it doesn't break this support level and invalidate the pattern, then there's possibly more to go. Whether it's 100% more or 500% more, who knows? But at least it's better than something that is still trending down, like Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash or some other crap from 2017.
You can also be more conservative if you want, and instead of playing the roulette game on meme coins, you can just buy Solana, right? Because Solana is the mother chain of all the meme coins, and I think it's going to do...
Basically, yeah. It broke past the top at 210, and now it's got to get to the all-time high at 260. So it's in a much stronger position, technically speaking, compared to many of the other top 10 projects.
Again, like you said, Ethereum also is not performing as much, but I think it's going to come up at some point. The ETF inflows are picking up again, and I think when the FOMO is going to kick in for Bitcoin, if you actually miss the boat and you are an institution, maybe you could look into the ETH ETF. I don't know. I have a pretty decent target for Ethereum. I think $10,000 is not off, but it has to go at some point. Are you also expecting a massive altcoin season, as always, at some point kicking in?
Am I expecting a massive alt season? Well, it's always hard to identify what that means to many people, because already now I'm hearing, when, like I see it on my comments all the time, when's alt season? When's alt season starting? When's it starting? It's like, go from October 2023, there's been a massive pump. And then even from October, last month, you've seen a pump. So what are we talking about? Are you waiting? Like, are they asking when is alt season at the peak of euphoria, which is too late? It's a tough question. So I think there's still one of those moves to go, right? Another big move to the upside. I think there's still plenty to go with alts, with Bitcoin, but whether people identify it in the moment as part of an alt season, that's a different question. So I think they'll reflect on it and then think, oh, maybe that was the alt season that I missed. Another one's going to come, and that's when people get destroyed. That's what happened last cycle. It's what happened the cycle before. I'm sure it happened the cycle before that with 2013, with any of those, the first altcoins. I think everything was called coin back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's such a good answer, because sometimes people miss the point entirely. Like you were saying, I believe maybe the question that people want to get answer is when my coin is going to go past the all-time high, which we can't answer that. But it's also, there is a seasonality in crypto. I mean, so far you see money going into Bitcoin and people take profit into layer ones and then into lower caps. So I don't know if this is going to repeat again, because this time we have institutions coming in. But I believe that at some point, some people will take profit into other coins from Bitcoin, because that's technically the vibe that we have in the crypto space. And we haven't seen coins like, I don't know, like Solid Layer 1 passing the all-time high. So we might see some of those pulling through, depending on the project and what they've done. But I'm expecting liquidity from Bitcoin going into alts at some point. And usually it happens after Bitcoin has gone parabolic. So I think we still have a big move coming in. I know we have already done a substantial move from 15 to whatever we are now when people are watching this. But I think we still have a huge parabolic run towards, and then probably want to stall. Dominance is going down and altcoins are going to pump. And I think most of the layer ones, at least in the top 10, they're going past their all-time high. So it's going to be interesting to see some of those kind of old school coins, if they're going to come back from the dead. Every cycle we have a shuffle, right? Like every cycle, some of the projects that we think they're going to pump, they are not pumping. And every cycle there is someone who's going to kill the previous one. Like it's supposed to be Solana supposed to be killing Ethereum, and now Su is supposed to be killing Solana. And then we'll have something else who's supposed to be killing something else. So it's extremely hard to stay on the narrative, on the game. That's why Bitcoin is the no-brainer. I buy it, I hold it, and it goes up so far. But it's going to be interesting to see how the top 10 is going to shuffle. And I'm sure you remember in 2017, we had a very different top 10. So things are moving, are shuffling in and out all the time. And what's your view on the strategic reserve on the US? I mean, do you think it's going to happen? Is there a chance that Trump is going to say, I was reading on Cynthia Lummis, she tweeted yesterday, she said, we want to have 1 million Bitcoin as a reserve currency for the US, and like 1 million Bitcoin?
I mean, it is probably going to show to the audience that I don't necessarily follow the news. I look at the chart, and so far the chart has done me very, very well. And people can look at my YouTube and they can look at my X to see that. And then also our members as well. They can see that that's done pretty well. And I kind of just avoid the news because it's just headlines. And I know we're just talking about it as part of a discussion here, but firstly, I don't think a very slim chance that it happens this cycle, at least. Very, very slim chance. And secondly, I think it's a bit of a pipe dream narrative for this cycle to pump up the price of Bitcoin if the narrative catches wind. So if it catches on, great. We'll keep running with it. It'll keep the masses thinking that this is, things are really different this time.
The only reason why I look into the news is because I have a live show and I have to be plugged in to
deliver exactly
what's happening in the market. But I don't trade based on, I don't buy my Bitcoin based on what Trump tweets or whatever. I completely agree with you. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I like your channel, because you are grounded in the charts. You don't FOMO into anything. You just read charts and candles. So that's fantastic because it's going to ground you in, right? Because there's so much noise around this thing. And now we have these institutional FOMO coming in. You have companies. Michael Saylor is about to pitch to Microsoft. Like yesterday, CEO of Rumble tweeted, we should have Bitcoin as a reserve strategy. And he tweeted and he replied, Michael Saylor replied, I can help. So there's been a conversation over there. And those tweets, those news, they move the market. They FOMO temporarily into things. But then, like you said, then the chart is going to probably ground you down and say, okay, this is just FOMO. So just remember.
You can see it. 2022, I come back to that because that's the most recent reference point for a low. And members of our community and also viewers on YouTube, I'll see them comment, they've been following for years. And they'll see that I was talking about the chart looks like this is likely to be a low. Like no one knows 100%. No one knows anything 100%. But we were talking about that being a low. At the time, you wouldn't know any of this news back then. Like none of this was out. But there was something building and you could see it in the chart. So now that it's coming out towards the highs 2 years after the low, well, it makes you think, why is it coming out now? Lows are formed on bad news and highs are formed on good news. There can't be, like logically speaking, there can't be any other way that it's done.
Yeah, there's even a saying, show me the chart, I'll tell you the news, right? So
yeah, you've got that saying exactly.
Bitcoin is in price discovery now. We don't know where this is going to go. And
throw a number out there. 122 is the first one. The next one I'm looking at is a doubling of the current top price. I think that was, the top was 74K that we had in March. In terms of the price targets, I know we weren't going to do any, but it gets a little bit too fun sometimes. The range was at 74K was the top, 15 and a half was the bottom. If I look out using this range projected off the top by 100, like the exact same range, I've got a target somewhere around 132. Now, that doesn't mean I think that's it. It can go a lot further. I've got a few other numbers above, but I've seen this happen quite a few times before, especially if I'm using a couple of my multiples here. I don't know if this one comes out, but yeah, I've got this here. 50% came out. There's 100%. Obviously, it's the reference point, and 150% is for this chart anyway. I think this is slightly different to some of the others, but anyway, 103. So earlier I said in the stream about 98 to 102. So this number's the short term. So I'm looking out to also around the 132, and then several multiples of that low. If you want to get crazy of this range, I think it's somewhere around 300.
That's incredible, by the way. Thank you for sharing your thoughts here. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no problemo. In terms of an extension, so we're just looking at this entire range that the market's already done. Essentially looking at like a wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. This is what my brother has been looking at on his channel. Now we have wave 5. So wave 5 is usually the biggest. So I think we're at least going to get somewhere around that sort of 120 to 200K. So 120 takes you out to here. There's 136, 200K's around there, the 250% of this range here. So these numbers, the market has done these before in terms of percentages. We can see it back on previous cycles, and actually I think it did 6 times the initial range out. So I throw this here. You can see that was exactly 6 times to that top. So using the first range, this is sort of stuff that I go through on the channel as well. And then we go into further detail with it so that you can learn how to use it for your trading and investing long term. That's your reference range, as they call it. And you got multiples here, and you can see it working on the way up. 150% is a very important point. 200% had a slight stop, but the market was so powerful, it just only stopped for about a week and a half and kept going. 250, 300, 400, it got to 500 here, and then 600 basically called the top. Sure, it's $1,000 off, but you're basically using this from the beginning of the range. Now, I'm not saying that I get this right 100% of the time, and that I have the the dedication and just the belief to stick with this for 2 years, 3 years, 1, 2, 3 years until you get to the top. Like it's a challenging thing to do. Don't get me wrong, but the numbers show up time and time again. So the more you do it, and as I said, I really want to emphasize a point. Like I'm not trying to make out like I'm an absolute genius when it comes to this, but I've seen it so many cycles. The more I see it, the more I can use it without faltering. And so hopefully I'm getting closer and closer to picking the tops. Not that I'm trying to sell at the exact top, but just get around the tops. So if I see it happen again somewhere around the 500%, maybe even around the 300% move, then I know, all right, I can take a few profits, and then I can also use my swing chart to help me exit on the way down. And that's what I did right here, November. And then I also got out, like I said earlier, it was around this December, January period. That's where I got out of my altcoins because I see the chart break down. That's my swing chart. So that was quite helpful to reduce the risk in the portfolio with the altcoins.
Thank you. I completely agree. I think it's impossible to map out the top and the bottom, but you can DCA your way in and your way out, right? So
exactly.
If you see some signal flashing, well, then maybe you can consider selling a portion of your portfolio because we are, quote, overextended, or depending if you're going up or down. So we have a CME gap at 78,000. Are you expecting us to close it? I don't know if you follow CME gap at all, but I have to ask.
I mean, I follow them because I think it's funny. Just listening to people, it's got to be filled, but there was a gap at 9,000 that wasn't filled, or 9.9 or whatever it was. Yeah, I know you know the same thing. Like you're probably the same, but you just hear it over and over again. What about this gap? What about this gap? Oh, it's got to come back. It's got to fill it. And you're like, not necessarily. Like the rule with gaps is generally, yeah, they can be filled. It's not a standalone trading system, but if a gap is formed and it doesn't come back to fill it, there is underlying strength. So rather than use it and say it has to come back and fill this, that's a stupid rule because it doesn't happen 100% of the time. If it doesn't, then it's a signal in the opposite direction. The opposite direction being the direction of the trend in where the gap formed. If the gap formed to the upside, there's extra strength there because the market is not coming back down. If it was a gap to the downside that needed to be filled and it doesn't get filled, well, there's extra weakness there. So yeah, that's the deal with trading signals.
But Jason, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, man. You're an absolute legend.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me on, and thanks to everyone for jumping on and watching today.
Yeah, indeed. Guys, as always, in the description, I will link Jason's channel. Make sure to follow. I'm sure you already do. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon, okay?
Cheers. Peace out.
Awesome. Cheers.